Maid's daughter tied Billionaire's baby. What he did next was unthinkable. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. It was a quiet afternoon at the billionaire's mansion, nestled on a hill overlooking the city. The kind of day where everything seemed to be in its place. The estate was vast, with marble floors that gleamed under the chandeliers, and every corner held an air of sophistication. The billionaire, Edward Hawke, had built his fortune from nothing. His empire spanned continents, and his name was known across the globe. Yet, despite all his wealth, there was one thing he couldn't control: his family life. As he walked into the grand living room, his eyes fell on his daughter, Lily, who was playing with her toys on the plush rug. The air in the room was thick with the scent of expensive leather and fresh flowers, but there was something else that caught his attention. In the corner of the room, standing as still as a shadow, was Maria, the young maid. She was supposed to be invisible, just another face in the background, as she always was. But today was different. Today, Maria was tasked with watching over the baby, Lily, as Edward had an important business meeting. At least, that was the plan. Edward had no idea that the quiet girl in the corner would soon change everything. Maria had been working for Edward's family for years, but she never once imagined that her life would intersect with his in such a dramatic way. As she glanced at Lily, who was playing with a set of colorful blocks, Maria noticed something odd. Lily had begun to tie something around her toy. At first, it seemed harmless, a child's innocent play. But as Maria watched closely, the knots grew tighter and more complex. There was something in the way Lily was tying that reminded her of an intricate knotting technique, one that Maria recognized from her childhood. Maria had spent her early years in a remote village, where knotting was an essential skill taught to every young girl. She had learned the craft to help with her family's work, but it was a skill not many in this world would understand. It was a skill that had been buried in her past, forgotten by most. As Edward walked toward his daughter, his attention still on his phone, Maria's eyes widened. She recognized the pattern. The baby was tying a knot that could be used to secure someone in a way that was both harmless and yet highly dangerous. Before Edward could reach his daughter, Maria leapt into action. She rushed to Lily's side, her hands trembling as she untangled the knot. Edward stopped in his tracks, watching the scene unfold before him. His expression shifted from one of indifference to confusion. Why was the maid involved with his daughter's play? Why had she intervened? What was happening here? Little did Edward know, this simple act would be the beginning of a revelation that would change everything he thought he knew about the people in his life. In that moment, the maid was no longer invisible. She was about to make him see her in a way he never had before, and the unthinkable would follow. As Maria quickly untied the knot, Edward stood frozen in the doorway, watching the unexpected turn of events unfold. His gaze shifted between his daughter, who was now looking up at him with wide, innocent eyes, and Maria, who was carefully making sure Lily was safe. He had not expected this. Maria, the quiet maid who had worked in his home for years, had just saved his daughter from what could have been a very dangerous situation. The knot was no mere child's play. It was a method of restraint, something he had never imagined his daughter could have been involved with. But there it was, tangled in her small hands, a skill that was far beyond her years. Edward stepped forward, still unsure of how to process what had just happened. The air was thick with tension, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was not right. He had always treated Maria like a background presence, a part of the household staff who took care of the minor details while he focused on building his empire. But now, she had stepped into the forefront, in a way he couldn't ignore. "What was that, Maria?" he asked, his voice uncharacteristically soft as he looked down at the young woman who had, just moments ago, been invisible to him. Maria hesitated, her hands still shaking slightly from the adrenaline of the moment. I didn't want to alarm you, sir, but I saw the pattern. It's a knot that can be used for tying something down." Her words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Edward's mind raced. He had no idea what she meant, but he could see the conviction in her eyes. Maria wasn't just a maid. She was someone with knowledge, with skills he had never given her credit for. And now, it seemed, those skills had saved his daughter. Where did you learn this? Edward's voice was almost a whisper. He couldn't help but be curious about this hidden side of her. Maria lowered her gaze, her voice soft as she spoke. It was something my grandmother taught me, back in the village. It's a technique that's passed down through generations. But I never thought I would use it here. Edward stood still for a moment, taking in her words. He had been so focused on his own success, on the wealth and power he had accumulated, that he had never stopped to consider the people who worked for him, the ones who made his life easier, the ones he barely acknowledged. Maria's actions had changed his perspective in an instant. His eyes softened, the hardness in them that had been a constant in his life beginning to melt away. "Thank you," he said quietly, the weight of gratitude heavy in his chest. Maria gave a small nod, her face betraying no emotion as she looked back at him. "You don't need to thank me, sir. I just did what needed to be done." Edward looked at her for a long moment, something shifting within him. He had always seen his employees as tools, people who worked for him, not as individuals with their own lives and experiences. But now, in this one small act, Maria had shown him that she was far more than just a servant. She was someone who had the ability to act quickly in a crisis, someone who had the knowledge to save lives, someone who had something to teach him. He knew then that this moment would change everything. Maria was no longer invisible. She had proven her worth in a way no one, including Edward himself, could ignore. I had always viewed my employees as just that, employees. People who performed the tasks I needed to maintain my empire. But in that moment, everything changed. Maria was no longer just a maid. She was someone who had stepped up in a way I had never imagined possible. She had saved my daughter, a child who meant the world to me, from something I didn't even know was a danger. For the first time, I began to see her not as a servant, but as an individual with a mind, a history, and skills that were far beyond my expectations. The thought lingered in my mind, and I couldn't shake it. How many other people in my life had I overlooked? How many other talents had I dismissed without a second thought? I stood there for a moment, lost in thought, trying to come to terms with the reality of what had just happened. Maria had acted swiftly and decisively, showing that she was capable of handling much more than I ever realized. It wasn't just about the knot or saving Lily. It was about her ability to think on her feet, to protect what mattered, to step into a crisis and act. It was something I had taken for granted. I had always been the one in control, the one who made the decisions, but in that moment, it was Maria who had saved the day. After a few seconds of silence, I took a deep breath and turned to face her. "Maria," I began, my voice quieter than usual. "You've done more than I could have ever asked for. You saved my daughter, and I can never thank you enough for that." Maria didn't respond right away. She simply nodded, her eyes downcast, as though she didn't want the attention. It was a humbling gesture, one that reminded me even more of her quiet strength. "It's my job, sir," she replied softly, almost too quietly for me to hear. "I just wanted to make sure she was safe." Her words hung in the air, and for a brief moment, I was reminded of how little I had ever really paid attention to her life outside of the work she did for me. She had grown up in a small village, and her skills had been honed through necessity, passed down from generation to generation. She wasn't just a maid. She was a person with a wealth of experience, someone who had survived and thrived in ways that I had never known. I realized that I had underestimated her in every possible way, and in doing so, I had missed out on understanding what made her truly exceptional. "Maria," I said again, this time with a more serious tone, "I want to know more about you. I've never taken the time to understand who you are, what you've been through, and that's something I intend to change." She looked up at me, her expression unreadable, but I saw something in her eyes, a flicker of curiosity, maybe even hope. It was as if she hadn't expected me to say that, but in that moment, it felt like the right thing to do. I wanted to hear her story, to understand where she came from and what had shaped her into the person she was today. I wanted to know more than just the woman who cleaned my house. I wanted to know Maria, the person who had saved my daughter's life. "I know this might be strange," I continued, "but I want to make things right between us. I've always treated you like a background character in my life, but you deserve more than that. I want to hear about your life, your skills, everything that's made you who you are." Maria seemed taken aback by my words. But she didn't pull away. Instead, she met my gaze, and for the first time, I saw her smile. Just a small, faint smile, but it was enough. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice steadier now. "It means a lot that you're willing to listen." In that moment, I knew something had shifted. I had taken the first step toward truly seeing her, toward acknowledging her as a person, not just an employee. It was a small step, but it was a beginning of understanding, of respect, and of something more than the superficial roles we had both been playing for far too long. As I looked at Maria, I realized that she had not only saved my daughter, but she had also saved me from my own ignorance. And I wasn't going to let that go unnoticed anymore. I sat there in silence, watching Maria carefully as she continued to tend to Lily, who was now peacefully playing on the floor. The way she moved, with such care and attention, made me realize how much I had underestimated her all these years. It was like I was seeing her for the first time. She wasn't just a maid. She was someone with intelligence, strength, and a deep well of knowledge I had never considered. I had always been so focused on my business, on making deals, and securing my legacy, that I never took the time to truly understand the people who helped keep my life running smoothly. Maria had always been in the background, just a part of the house that I rarely acknowledged. But now, after what had happened, I realized how much I had missed. The knot that Maria had undone was not just a physical one. It was a symbol of everything I had overlooked in her. The more I thought about it, the more I knew that I had to make things right. I had to see her not just as a part of the household, but as a person deserving of respect and understanding. "Maria," I said softly, breaking the silence. She looked up at me, her expression calm and guarded. "I've been thinking about what you did today. You saved my daughter's life, and I can't thank you enough for that." She nodded, but I could see she wasn't looking for praise. She was simply doing what she had been trained to do. "It's not about thanks, sir," she said quietly. "I'm just glad she's safe." There was a humility in her voice that made me feel even more like I had missed the mark with her. She wasn't seeking recognition. She was just doing her job, and she had done it flawlessly. I leaned forward slightly, locking eyes with her. "No," I said firmly. "You did more than just your job. You did something no one else could have done in that moment. You acted quickly, you saw the danger, and you saved her. That's not something I can just ignore." Maria shifted uncomfortably, but there was no denying the truth in my words. She had done something extraordinary. "You don't have to do this, sir," she said, her voice soft, almost pleading. "I'm just a maid." I shook my head, feeling a wave of frustration rise within me. How could she not see it? "No, Maria, you're not just a maid. You're someone who is capable of so much more. I've been blind to that for too long." Her eyes widened slightly, as if she didn't quite know how to respond. I could see the weight of my words sinking in. "I want to do something for you, something that shows I see you for who you truly are. Not just as someone who works for me, but as someone who is important, someone who deserves respect." She looked down, her hands fidgeting nervously. "I don't need anything, sir," she said quietly. "I'm fine." I could tell she was being modest, but I wasn't going to let her dismiss this. "I'm not asking you to take anything you don't want," I said, my tone gentle but firm. "But I want you to know that your worth is not defined by your position in this house. You've proven today that you are someone who can make a real difference. And that deserves recognition." Maria looked up at me, her expression softening just slightly. For the first time since I had known her, I saw a flicker of something. Hope, maybe, or maybe just a glimmer of the person she could be, given the opportunity. "Thank you, sir," she said quietly, but I could tell the words meant more than just gratitude. They were a sign of understanding, a shift in our relationship. In that moment, I realized that this was just the beginning of something new. A new chapter for both of us. And it all started with me opening my eyes to what Maria was really capable of. As the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside me had shifted. I had always thought of myself as a man who was in control, who made all the decisions, and who knew how to navigate any situation. But Maria had shown me that there was more to life than power and wealth. She had reminded me of the importance of humanity, of seeing people for who they really were and not just for the roles they played. It was a lesson I had ignored for far too long. One afternoon, after the incident with Lily, I called Maria into my office. She walked in quietly, her usual calm demeanor intact. There was something about her that still fascinated me, something I hadn't fully understood until now. Maria, I began, my voice steady but with a hint of sincerity. I've been thinking a lot about what you did for Lily. And I realize now that you've earned more than just my gratitude. You've earned my respect. Maria stood still, her eyes downcast. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially from someone like me. Thank you, sir, she replied softly, her tone still humble, but I could see a hint of something different in her eyes. It wasn't just the usual response. It was something deeper. I don't think you fully understand, I continued, leaning forward in my chair. What you did for my daughter, it wasn't just an act of duty. It was an act of courage and quick thinking. And it's something I can't ignore. Maria's hands nervously clasped in front of her as she listened. You're right, sir, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I just did what anyone would have done in my position. I shook my head, not agreeing with her modesty. No, Maria, not anyone would have done that. You were in the right place at the right time, but it was your actions that made all the difference. And I owe you more than a thank you. Maria finally looked up at me, meeting my gaze. There was a flicker of recognition in her eyes, but she didn't say anything. I want to offer you something, I said, making up my mind. Something that goes beyond just the usual compensation. I want to give you an opportunity, a chance to do more, to be more than just a maid. She blinked, surprised by my words. Sir, I don't understand, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I've never asked for anything more. I'm just here to work and help. I smiled, leaning back in my chair. I know you haven't asked for anything, but you've proven yourself to be capable of so much more. I want to give you a chance to show the world, and more importantly, yourself, what you're truly capable of. Maria stood there, silent for a moment, her mind clearly racing. What do you mean, sir? She asked carefully. I'm offering you a job, I said, looking directly into her eyes. Not as a maid, but as someone who can make a real impact. You've got skills that go beyond what anyone could have imagined. I want to put them to use, not just in this house, but in the world. Maria's mouth parted slightly in surprise, and I could see the hesitation in her expression. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything right now, I replied, but I want you to think about it. You've got a future ahead of you, Maria. Don't let anyone tell you that your worth is limited to what you do in this house. You're capable of so much more. As the words left my mouth, I knew I had made a decision that would change both of our lives. Maria wasn't just the maid anymore. She was someone with a future, someone with potential, someone who had proven herself in a way that no one, especially me, could ignore. And as I looked at her, standing there in front of me, I knew that I had just opened the door to something neither of us could have ever predicted. Over the next few weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation I had with Maria. It was a turning point, not just for her, but for me as well. I had made a promise to give her an opportunity, but now I needed to find a way to make it happen. Maria, however, wasn't the type to ask for anything. She was humble, quiet, and had always worked in the background, unseen and unheard. It was almost as if she didn't believe she deserved anything more than what she had. But I was determined to change that. I started with small steps, providing her with better tools to work with, improving her conditions. I could see her hesitation, her reluctance to accept anything out of the ordinary. But one day, as I watched her quietly clean the floors of the grand hallway, I realized that I had to push harder. She was more than capable. I knew it. And now it was time for her to realize it too. I walked up to her as she was finishing her tasks. Maria, I began, my voice firm yet kind. She stopped, looking up at me. Yes, sir, she replied, her expression neutral, but I could tell she was waiting for me to ask her to do something. I want you to meet me in my office after you're done. We have something to discuss, I said. Maria's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't say anything. I knew it was a lot to ask, but I also knew that I couldn't wait any longer. When she walked into my office later that day, she looked almost nervous, as if she expected to be reprimanded for something. Please, have a seat, I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. She sat down slowly, and I could see the tension in her posture. Maria, I've been thinking a lot about what I said before. You've proven yourself to be much more than just a maid in my eyes. You've shown me a side of you that I never knew existed, and I want to give you the chance to prove it to yourself. She stared at me, uncertainty written on her face. Sir, I don't understand, she said, her voice soft. I'm just here to do my job. I don't need anything more. That's the problem, Maria, I replied, leaning forward. You think that you're just here to do your job, but you're so much more than that. I want you to come work for me on a real project, something that will help us both grow. I've seen the skills you have, your ability to think on your feet, your quick decision-making, and your knowledge of things that most people wouldn't understand. You've got more potential than you give yourself credit for. Maria blinked at me, her mouth slightly open as she processed my words. But sir, I don't know anything about running a business, or, you don't have to, I interrupted gently. That's why I'm here to help you. I want to give you the opportunity to learn. You've shown more initiative and intelligence than some of the people I've worked with for years. I want to see what you can do when you're given the chance. Maria looked down, her fingers fiddling with the edge of her sleeve, unsure of what to say. It was clear that she didn't think she deserved such an offer. I don't know if I can, she said quietly. I don't have the experience. You don't need experience, Maria, I reassured her. You have something much more important, a mind that can think critically, and a heart that doesn't quit. That's more than I could ever ask for in an employee. She looked up at me, a small glimmer of hope in her eyes. It was the first time I had ever seen that kind of emotion from her. I'll give you the time and resources you need, I continued. I'll mentor you. I'll guide you. But you'll have to put in the work. This is your chance to prove to yourself that you are capable of far more than you ever thought possible. For the first time since I had known Maria, she smiled. It was a small smile, but it was a start. I'll do my best, sir, she said, her voice steadier than before. That's all I'm asking, I replied, feeling a sense of pride swelling in my chest. This was just the beginning for Maria, and for the first time, I truly believed that she was ready to step into the future I had promised her. In the weeks that followed, Maria began to step into her new role with an energy I hadn't seen from her before. She started to take on more responsibilities, learning quickly and embracing the challenges I had set before her. At first, she hesitated, unsure if she truly belonged in the position I had offered. But with each new task, her confidence grew, and so did mine in her abilities. I watched as she tackled complex projects with the same meticulous care that she had shown when caring for Lily. It became clear to me that Maria wasn't just capable, she was exceptional. It wasn't long before I began to see her differently, not as a mere employee, but as a key player in my business. One day, as we were discussing the progress of a new initiative I had assigned her, I saw something in her that I hadn't recognized before, a spark of leadership. Maria, I said, leaning back in my chair, I'm impressed. You've done more than I could have expected. You're not just following orders. You're making decisions, solving problems, and coming up with innovative ideas. That's exactly the kind of thinking I need in this company. Maria looked up at me, surprised by the compliment. Thank you, sir, she said, her voice steady, though I could hear a hint of pride beneath her words. But I couldn't have done it without your guidance. You've shown me what I'm capable of. Her humility was something I admired, but it also made me realize just how much she had held back before. She had so much potential, and it was clear to me that the more she believed in herself, the more she would accomplish. No, I replied, shaking my head. You had this in you all along. I just gave you the opportunity to see it for yourself. Maria smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. It was the same smile I had seen when she saved Lily. Only now, it was a smile of someone who had finally come into their own. It was a moment of realization for both of us. I'm proud of you, Maria, I added, my voice filled with sincerity. You've proven yourself in ways that go beyond what I could have imagined. You've shown not just your skills, but your strength and your heart. You've made a difference, not only here, but in your own life, too. She nodded, and for the first time since I had known her, I saw a woman who was no longer afraid of her own potential. It was an empowering moment, not just for Maria, but for me as well. In helping her see her worth, I had started to see mine differently, too. The truth was, I had been blind to so much before. I had always prided myself on being a man of vision, but I had failed to recognize the strength of those who had worked alongside me, those who had helped build my empire. Maria had shown me that true leadership wasn't about power, it was about empowering others. She had the heart, the drive, and the capability to do more than anyone could have imagined, and I was proud to be the one who had helped her realize it. As I watched her leave my office that day, I knew that this was just the beginning of something incredible for both of us. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a leader, a visionary, and someone who would continue to change the world in ways that no one, including herself, could have ever predicted. As the months passed, Maria's transformation became undeniable. She had flourished in the new role I had given her, taking on more responsibility with each passing day. Her confidence continued to grow, and so did my admiration for her. It was clear now that the potential I had seen in her from the start was only the tip of the iceberg. Maria had become an integral part of the team, not just helping me with business decisions, but also offering insights that helped shape the future of the company. One afternoon, as we were going over a new project proposal, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had come. From the quiet maid who had stayed in the background, Maria had become a key player in my business. "Maria," I said, looking up from the proposal, "I never would have imagined that you would be the one to turn this company around." She smiled softly but didn't say anything. It was rare for her to acknowledge her own accomplishments, but I knew she was proud of the work she had done. "You've helped me more than anyone could have predicted," I continued, my voice filled with sincerity. "I made a mistake before, underestimating you. But now, I can see that everything I thought I knew about leadership and success has changed because of you." Maria looked at me, her eyes steady. "I never expected this, sir," she replied quietly. "But I'm grateful for the opportunity you've given me. It's changed my life." "It's not just the opportunity," I said, meeting her gaze. "It's your own drive, your talent, and your ability to think outside the box. That's what's made all the difference." Maria's eyes softened. I could see the quiet pride in her. But there was something else too, an inner peace that came from knowing she had earned her place, not just in my company, but in the world. I had watched her change, not just in her professional life, but in her personal confidence as well. She no longer shrank into the background. She stood tall, confident in her worth. "I want to keep growing," Maria said after a moment of silence. "I want to keep learning, to keep doing more." I smiled at her, proud of the woman she had become. "You will," I replied. "There's no limit to what you can accomplish now. You've proven that you can do anything you set your mind to." As the conversation ended and Maria left the office, I felt a sense of pride that was different from anything I had felt before. This wasn't just about business success. It was about seeing someone's potential, nurturing it, and watching it bloom into something extraordinary. Maria had become a leader, not just in my company, but in her own life. And as I watched her leave, I knew that this was just the beginning. Together, we had changed everything. Her future, my business, and our understanding of what was truly possible when we opened our eyes to the people around us. As time passed, the transformation in Maria was nothing short of remarkable. What had started as an opportunity to prove herself in a new role had evolved into a journey of self-discovery, growth, and empowerment. She was no longer the shy, humble maid who had quietly walked the halls of my mansion. Now, she was a confident, skilled leader, respected by everyone who worked with her. It wasn't just me who noticed the change, others did too. Employees who had once overlooked her now sought her out for advice, valuing her judgment and expertise. Maria had become a cornerstone of the company, and it was clear that she was destined for even greater things. I watched her navigate challenges with ease, her decisions marked by the same intelligence and care she had shown when saving my daughter. Her success wasn't just a testament to her hard work. It was a reflection of the potential that had always been inside her, waiting to be unlocked. One day, as we were discussing an important business venture, I looked at Maria and realized how far she had come. She had not only earned her place in the company, but she had also earned my deepest respect. "Maria," I said, looking at her with admiration, "you've done more than I ever expected. You've changed not just this company, but your own life as well." She smiled softly, a smile that spoke of quiet pride and quiet strength. "I couldn't have done it without your belief in me," she replied. "You gave me the chance to prove myself." "You did it yourself," I said, shaking my head. "I only gave you the opportunity, but you're the one who took it and ran with it." It was true. Maria had shown a strength and resilience I had never imagined. She had proven that anyone, no matter their background or circumstances, could achieve greatness if given the right chance. "You've made a difference," I continued. "Not just for me, but for everyone who's ever doubted themselves. You've shown them that it's never too late to step into your power." Maria looked at me for a moment, her eyes full of gratitude. I never thought I could do all of this, she said softly. But now I know I can. I knew then that the journey we had started together was far from over. Maria's future was limitless, and as she continued to rise, so too would the opportunities for everyone who had been lucky enough to witness her transformation. And as for me, I had learned one of the most valuable lessons of all. True leadership isn't about power. It's about recognizing potential in others and giving them the opportunity to shine. I had given Maria a chance, and she had shown me that the greatest gift we can offer others is belief. It was a lesson that would stay with me for the rest of my life. Looking at Maria now, I saw not just the person who had saved my daughter, but a woman who had saved me from my own narrow view of the world. And as she walked away from my office that day, I knew that this was just the beginning of a much larger story, a story of growth, transformation, and the power of believing in someone else. This is a truly inspiring tale that showcases the journey of a young maid whose life was transformed in a millionaire's world. In these millionaire stories, we often see the success and wealth of powerful individuals, but this story flips the narrative. It highlights the extraordinary potential hidden within ordinary people, especially when given the opportunity to rise. The story begins with a seemingly ordinary maid working for a billionaire, a man who had everything but lacked the ability to recognize the worth of those around him. Through a simple act of bravery and quick thinking, this maid saves the billionaire's daughter, proving that sometimes the most valuable people are those we least expect. As the millionaire begins to see the potential in the maid, her life is forever changed. She steps into a new role, not only changing the course of her own life, but also transforming the billionaire's perspective. This millionaire story reveals how unlocking the hidden potential in others can change everything. By offering her the opportunity to take on a new role in his company, the billionaire allows the maid to blossom into a capable and confident leader. Her growth becomes evident as she overcomes self-doubt and proves her worth in a way that even the most powerful individuals would never have imagined. This millionaire story teaches a valuable lesson. True leadership is not about power, but about recognizing the potential in others and giving them the chance to succeed. It's about believing in people, even when they don't believe in themselves. As the maid rises in her new role, she shows everyone around her that greatness is not determined by social status, but by the will to seize opportunities. This transformation from a humble maid to a powerful leader in the world of the rich is a testament to the power of belief and opportunity. Through this millionaire story, we see that anyone, regardless of their background, can achieve incredible success if they are given the chance to prove themselves.